Warning, the following video contains a gratuitous amount of someone else's opinion. Viewer discretion is advised.
Making a sequel to a game that fails all around is difficult, because you don't really learn what to do, just what not to do. But it isn't all bad, because it sets a low bar to get over and often an even lower set of expectations. But following up a good game? That's tough. Do things too similar and it might be dismissed as unimaginative, underdeveloped, or worse, just plain lazy. But change things too much and you risk losing the core of the previous game's experience, potentially alienating your audience along the way. Finding that balance is something that a ton of games have struggled to do, but even if you do have it down, which I firmly believe the topic of today's video does, it doesn't necessarily mean that a superior game will emerge in the end. If your changes aren't for the better, you can easily end up with a game that fails to live up to its predecessor. Does Boo's Fury fall into that trap? Or is it the worthy successor I hope it's going to be? Let's find out. We start off in Otherworld with Goku. Having been deceased for 7 years since the end of Legacy of Goku 2, getting ready to enter a tournament to compete for the opportunity to train with the Grand Kai. In this area, you can speak with some of the other souls and they'll explain the basics of combat to you. Right from the get-go, this game looks and feels a lot like its predecessor, and that's certainly not a bad thing. Combat feels very similar, the only real addition being the block, though it's not really necessary and seems to mostly exist for the enemies to use so they don't get killed quite as easily. And that said, it doesn't take very long for a serious issue to start appearing. In Legacy of Goku 2, even in the early game, leveling up only happened occasionally, with it being very easy to finish the game with your characters all in the mid-30s to early 40s. In Boo's Fury, the game starts off with Goku already at level 60, and it hands out level ups like candy. This isn't to say that Boo's Fury Goku feels stronger than the in-game characters in Legacy 2, but it's a change likely made to accommodate the new way leveling works, which is, in my mind, a straight downgrade. In Legacy 2, each level up would net you a small number of stat increases across your 3 base stats. Each character would build them at a different rate, as well as vary in the amount of total health and energy they had. No character was left feeling too underpowered in any area, and it gave them all their own flair, even if you could just ignore it and just ram them all headfirst into bad guys until you won. The option to play to their strengths was there. In Boo's Fury, each level up allots you 3 stat points that you can spend any way you want, with the only caveat being that you can't increase a stat past the character's level. So if Goku is currently level 80, you can't make Goku's strength higher than 80. This sounds fine on paper until you realize it encourages a practice that can ruin even some of the best design systems. Min-maxing. Because melee attacks require no energy and are just as capable of being super powerful as any energy blast, there's little reason not to push most or all of your points into strength, and maxing it out can be done in only a couple of dozen levels that rain upon you like dollar bills in the strip club. Once you've done that, maintenance of the skill only requires 1 point per level up, allowing you to make yourself a walking tank by stacking the rest into endurance, completely trivializing most of the combat across essentially the entire game. And that's before you take into account that leveling up refills your health and energy bar. So the healing and energy items that are dropped by enemies are mostly useless, as you'll often level up long before you're in particular danger of death. Oh wait, that's right, the health and energy restoring pickups of the previous game have been changed from immediate use items into ones that you grab and can then use anytime from the menu. In another situation, I'd probably praise this change, as it theoretically negates the need for item grinding with low on resources, but it just doesn't synergize with the way the combat works now. And because of that, you're liable to have so many items you don't know what to do with them all long before the end of the game comes. Once again, negating the threat of death outside the very, very early bits of the game. One final major change has been made that I actually think is a nearly universally good one, though it's also brought down by the changed level up system, and it definitely can't redeem the otherwise glaring downward steps taken by the combat and leveling. In Legacy of 2, you could find stat capsules that were one-time use and could give a boost to any character you want at any time. They were limited in number, so they weren't overpowered, but if you're anything like me, it likely made you very wary of using them. With the exception of my review playthrough where I saved them for the secret unlockable character, I've always saved them for Gohan during the final battle with Cell. These have been replaced by equipable items, chests, gloves, boots, and headwear or jewelry that offer different stat buffs and or other boosts. They can be used by any character at any time, with the only restriction being that they must be high enough level. Which is a fair enough trade-off, especially considering you rarely get items more than a few levels ahead of where you are. Man, that was a bit of a sidetrack. To save time, I'm gonna go quick until I reach something else I want to talk about. The Otherworld tournament happens, Gohan becomes the Great Saiyan Man, the World Martial Arts tournament starts, you get to play as Videl and fight Spopovich, which is cool. The guys follow Supreme Kai to Bobity's ship, and in that stupid ship, it's stupid! In the ship, you go through 2 essentially identical areas doing the exact same task and fighting the same enemies, broken up only by one boss fight, and then another actual boss fight. After that, the 3rd area is thankfully somewhat different. You're still pressing the same buttons, just with the extra step now of needing to flip switches to unlock these doors to collect the buttons first. These areas are also filled with enemies with shields, which is annoying, and lasers that'll pop out of the floor and shoot you before you can see them, so that's bullshit. After pressing them all, you reach the final boss fight of this area against Deborah, which is fine. But after that, the real action begins, as Majin Vegeta arrives. He does the big evil as he murders innocent bystanders and then fights Goku. But Goku doesn't want to fight, and Buu arrives and karate chop knockout, and then boom! Huge explosion that's admittedly kind of lame in the game, but they tried hard, so I can forgive that. At this point, Trunks and Goten team up to gather the Dragon Balls in one of the most drawn-out sequences of the game, though it does include a trip to Pilaf's castle, which is cool, as well as a battle with Broly, which is not as good as I was hoping for, to say the least. Once that's done, Goku teaches the boys how to do the fusion dance, and we reach another high point, the reveal of Super Saiyan 3. This is as good a place as any to talk about another change from Legacy of Goku 2. In Legacy 2, transforming into a Super Saiyan would slowly but surely deplete your energy bar, which meant using beam attacks would drain it at an even greater speed. In Buu's Fury, becoming a Super Saiyan adds a second bar on top of the first that drains very slowly. It can also be used for energy attacks, but once it's depleted, you still have the option of using ki-based attacks with your regular energy bar. And becoming a Super Saiyan 3 adds another bar on top of that, though this one drains very quickly, and once it runs out, you again drop to the character's regular version and have to wait to go Super again. You can only become a Super Saiyan 3 if you're already a Super Saiyan, which actually makes the optimal time to transform right before your normal power would run out, both increasing the maximum time you stay powered up and giving you a second boost. But alas, using so much Super Saiyan 3 has wasted the rest of Goku's time in the world of the living, and he has to head back to Otherworld, where he and the recently deceased Vegeta take on Janemba by using the fusion dance to transform into Gogeta. Meanwhile on Earth, Hercule accidentally befriends Majin Buu and shows that he's actually somewhat capable at some things? Who knew? Back in Otherworld, Goku gets bored doing nothing for more than 3 seconds, so he decides to try and track down Gohan and finds him on the planet of the Kais, where he then proceeds to help break the legendary Z-Sword, releasing the ancient Supreme Kai within. Yada yada, power boost, and Majin Buu separates. The evil Grey Buu absorbs the relatively less evil Pink Buu and creates Super Buu. Then Gotenks versus Super Buu in the Time Chamber, but Gotenks is two stupid kids stacked on one another, so he tries to pull a stupid kid trick and ends up getting himself, Piccolo, and Super Buu trapped in the Time Chamber forever. The end. Okay, so maybe everyone escapes, and then Gotenks fights Super Buu for real, but doesn't quite get it. But then Ultimate Gohan fights Super Buu, and doesn't quite get it either. Also, they all get absorbed. But then Vegito fights him, and gets absorbed also, but it's a trap so that he can free everyone, so it works out. But while they're pulling people all willy-nilly, they pull out the original Buu and it transforms Super Buu into Kid Buu. Goku and Vegeta take turns fighting and or running away from him before Mr. Satan steps up to save the day with Goku's Spirit Bomb. And that's the story of Buu's Fury. Kinda. Sorta. My telling of it was pretty clunky to say the least, but so is the actual game, so I think it balances it out. Overall, this game is still clearly superior to the original Legacy of Goku by a mile, but when trying to compare it to Legacy 2, almost every change it makes is to the detriment of the overall quality of the experience. That's not to say it's not still alright, it's just easily a step below its predecessor. Hey guys, thanks for sticking around until the end of the video. If you liked what you saw, consider clicking those like and subscribe buttons down below. If you haven't seen it already, you should check out the reviews I did of the Legacy of Goku 1 and 2 a while back. Or if you're looking for something different, check out this video I did on one of the most interesting puzzle games I've seen, Baba Is You. Regardless of what you choose, I hope to see you next time. Bye!